So welcome again in this mechanical ventilation module, and today the last session of this module, and today I will discuss about the weaning protocol, how we one patient on the ventilator. So let's start with a case presentation. A 50-year-old smoker COPD with diabetic mellitus was admitted to the ICU with altered sensorium and acute respiratory distress, and he was intubated because of ABG revealing the acute respiratory acidosis with altered sensorium, and patient was put on the controlled mechanical ventilation, and patient is improved with the mechanical ventilation and other treatment in 2 days. Successful this spontaneous breathing trial was tried and extubated, and after 5 hours the patient again re-intubated because of the severe respiratory distress, and he failed several trial of SBT, and tracheostomy was done on the 9th day of ventilation. So this is the usual circumstances which we are facing during our day-to-day ICU practice, and during the ICU posting as a JR or SR, we all of you are also facing the same things. So how will you deal such situation? Let's discuss about that. As we know that the weaning from the mechanical ventilation means transition from the total ventilative support to the spontaneous breathing, and it is usually a rapid and a smooth process in most of the patient. However, this can become a progressive and prolonged in the 20 to 25% of the cases. So for such patient require a systemic approach for the successful liberation from the ventilator. For that you have to follow the stepwise approach, and this stepwise approach we have to discuss here. That we have to, first one is that you have to identify whether this patient is ready for weaning or not. If the patient is ready for weaning, then you have to prepare for the weaning. Give the spontaneous breathing trial to the patients. Monitor the patient closely when you are giving the spontaneous breathing trial to a mechanically ventilated patients. If the patient is this SBT trial is successful, then plan to extubate the patient, and after extubation monitor for the extubation failure. Then try for the non-invasive ventilation. Identify any difficult weaning, any problem after the extubation, and then ascertain the cause of weaning defect. So first one is that how will you identify whether this patient is ready for weaning or not, and these are the criteria. The underlying reason should be resolved. The patient is hemodynamically stable with minimal or no pressure support. Oxygen should be adequate. PF ratio should be more than 150 and PP is less than 5 to 8 centimeter of water. FiO2 should be less than 0.5% or SpO2 is more than 90% on the FiO2 of less than 40%. And patient is able to initiate spontaneous inspiratory efforts. Besides these above criteria, the patient should be febrile, patient should be stable metabolic status, patient hemoglobin should be adequate, and patient should have the adequate maintenance, like patient should be irascible, Glasgow Coma score is more than 30, and the optimum fluid balance. Now these are some of the weaning predictor, and always see these predictors, because if this patient fulfills the readiness for weaning criteria, and assessment of prediction of successful weaning should be performed before starting a proper weaning trial. So what are these predictors? The first one is the rapid shallow breathing index. The rapid shallow breathing index is the most widely studied and popular weaning predictors, and it is assessed by the putting the patient on the TPs for 2 minutes, and it is equal to frequency divided by tidal volume in the liters. If it is less than 100, it means patient has the good predictor of successful weaning, and it is more than 100, it means patient who can fail the weaning. The another predictors are minute ventilation less than 10 liter per minute and respiratory rate less than 30 per minute. Maximum inspiratory pressure more negative, that is less than minus 30 centimeter of water. And if you are doing the ultrasound, do the bedside ultrasound of the diaphragm, and it measures the diaphragmatic exertion and diaphragmatic thickening fraction, and that will be very good promising predictor to predict the. Then move to the step 2 and prepare for the weaning. The first do the spontaneous awakening trial. If it is successful, then go for the spontaneous breathing trial. So at first you have to stop the sedation and awake the patient. If the patient is clinically resolved their pathology, then patient will tolerate the tube and patient become very stabilized. But if there is even the pathology still exists, pathology is still exist, and patient have a lot of anxiety, then patient can show the sign of spontaneous awakening trial, like patient have the anxiety, agitation or pain, patient respiratory rate is more than 35 per minute, SpO2 is less than 88. Respiratory distress can occur in such patients, and then patient have the acute cardiac arrhythmia as well. So if the patient fails the spontaneous awakening trial, restart sedation on the half of the previous dose and the patient passes the SAT trial, then after stopping the sedation, assess the patient for spontaneous breathing trial. So for the spontaneous breathing trial, you can give the SBT trial to a patient breathing through endotracheal tube either without any ventilator support like through a TPs or with minimal ventilator support like a low level of pressure support, automatic tube compensation or CPAP mode. So there are mainly two options. One is the TPs, and TPs in which patients are disconnected from the ventilator and made to breathe humidified oxygen air mixture through a TPs connected to the endotracheal or tracheostomy tube for 30 minutes. And the another mode with the ventilator is the pressure support. The pressure support level is to be gradually reduced, titrated on the respiratory rate in patient comfort. A level of 6 to 8 centimeter of water of the pressure support is considered to overcome the tube resistance, and then put the patient on pressure support of 6 to 8 centimeter of water and P for 4 centimeter. Then after that, after giving the spontaneous breathing trial by using the TPs or PSB, then go ahead with the step 4, that is you have to monitor closely during the SBT trial, and these are the sign of failure of SBT trial. You can see with the objective and subjective measurement. The objective measurements, the PO2 is less than equal to 50 to 60 centimeter of mm of Hg, or on the FI2 of more than equal to 0.5% or SO2 of less than or equal to 90%. PCO2 is more than 50 mm of Hg or increase in PCO2 by 8 mm of Hg. pH less than 7.32 or decrease in pH more than 0.07 pH unit. Rapid shallow breathing index more than 105. Respiratory rate is more than 35 or increase of the more than 50%. Heart rate is more than 140 or increase of more than 20%. Systolic blood pressure more than 80 or an increase of more than 20%, and systolic blood pressure is less than 90. And cardiac. You can assess the patient subjectively also, and these are the signs. If the patient has agitation and anxiety, patient has a depressed mental status, diaphoresis, cyanosis, evidence of increasing effort, increased accessory muscles activity, facial sign of distress. Then go ahead to the step number 5, that you have to extubate the patient. So after undergoing a successful SBT, a few more criteria should be fulfilled before deciding about the extubation. That is adequate cuff reflex spontaneously or while suctioning, adequate cuff strength, and that is the cuff, we have to measure that by seeing the cuff peak expiratory flow more than 6 liters per minute, and patients should be able to protect the airway and they should follow the secretion should not be copious. A cuff leak of less than 110 ml measured during the access controlled ventilation may help to identify patients who are at high risk of developing post-extubation stridor or obstruction of the airway, and no radiological or surgical procedure is being planned in the near future, and extubation should not be done at the end of the day, and GCS should be more than 8. After that, we have to move to the step number 6. We have to monitor for the extubation failure. So after extubation, the patient should be observed closely for sign of extubation failure. If the respiratory rate is more than 25 per minute for 2 hours, that is a sign of the extubation failure. If you are going to seeing the cardiovascular system, then you have to see the heart rate. If the heart rate is more than 140 beats per minute or sustained increase or decrease of more than 20% of the heart rate, any clinical sign of respiratory muscle fatigue or increased work of breathing, SO2 should be less than 90%, PO2 should be less than 80 mm of Hg. If the SO2 is less than 90%, PO2 is less than 80 mm of Hg on FI2 more than 50%, then this is also the sign of extubation failure. And if the patient has the hypercapnia, PCO2 is more than 45 or increase by more than 20% from the pre-extubation, and pH is less than 7. Then move to the step number 7 and try the non-invasive ventilation. If the sign of extubation failure are present, then try the non-invasive ventilation. NIV you can use in the 3 clinical settings. The first one as an alternative weaning technique for the patient who failed the spontaneous breathing trial. So in that condition you extubate the patient and then put the patient immediately on the non-invasive ventilation. You can use as a prophylactic measures for the patient with a high risk of re-intubation, and mainly it can occur in the post-operative patients. And as the treatment of respiratory insufficiency after the extubation, such cases can occur in case of the COPD patients. So there is chances of the post-extubation failure. Then you, in that condition, you can use the NIV immediately after the extubation. So intravenous corticosteroid, if you are suspecting the post-extubation stridor or there is airway edema, so you can give the intravenous corticosteroid like the methylprednisolone 20 milligram 4 hours before extubation, and every 4 hourly for 4 doses, or a single dose of 40 milligram 4 hours before extubation may be tried in the patient with high risk for the post-extubation stridor, like prolonged ventilation, patient having a ventilate for the prolonged time, patient having the difficult intubation, so at that time there is airway edema, or in case of the re-intubation, especially in the absence of the cuff leak. Assess the safety of starting feed after the extubation, and you should give the feed only after seeing the swallow assessment. If the patient has a swallow reflexes, then you can give. If not, then don't give, because it can cause. Then after that, move to the step 8 and identify the difficult weaning. Weaning success is defined as the extubation and the absence of ventilative support 48 hours following the extubation. Weaning failure is defined as one of the following. First one is the failed SBT. If the patient not tolerated well the spontaneous breathing trial, then it comes under the weaning failure. Reintubation and or resumption of ventilative support following the successful extubation, and death within 48 hours following the extubation. Weaning in progress, the patient who are extubated but remain supported by the non-invasive ventilation, that is weaning in progress. And difficult weaning, patient who failed the initial weaning and require up to 3 SBT or as long as 7 days from the first SBT to achieve the successful weaning. Prolonged weaning, patient who fail more than 3 weaning attempts or require more than 7 days of weaning after the first SBT. So these are the different definition of weaning. One is the failed weaning, weaning in progress, difficult weaning, and the prolonged. Then after that, we have to move to the step 9 and ascertain the cause of weaning difficulty. Difficulty or prolonged weaning is usually due to the incomplete resolution of initial indication for the ventilation. This is most important. And you have to also see the following things to why this patient has difficulty in breathing. So you can see that whether this patient has the inadequate inspiratory drive, like any nutritional deficiency. Patient, we are giving the excess of sedation or any abnormality in the central nervous system, or patient has the sleep deprivation. Another subheading, you have to search that inability of the lung to carry out the oxygen gas exchange effectively, like patient has the unresolving pneumonia is still persisted, unresolved pulmonary edema or fluid overload, undiagnosed pulmonary embolism, the splinting effect of the obesity, abdominal distension or ascites, respiratory muscle fatigue or weakness, nutritional and metabolic deficiency, and critical illness, polyneuropathy or myopathy, and then electrolyte imbalance like the hypokalemia or like the hypocalcemia, hypo and hypernatremia. So you have to rule out all these electrolyte imbalance, and you have to address all such problem. Then also look for any anxiety, and it is very difficult to distinguish anxiety from the ventilative failure. So because if the patient has the anxiety, so you have to give the anxiolytic drugs to such patients. But if the patient has the sign of ventilative failure, then you have to give the ventilative support, either by giving the NIV, or you can plan for the re-intubation in such cases if there is sign of the ventilatory failure. And psychological dependency in the difficult weaning condition. In that condition, psychological dependency, and in condition you have to give the some anxiolytic drugs to such patients. Now after that, treat all the reversible causes all those conditions who are identified, and so you have to treat, and if they are the reversible, then patient will benefit it, and you are able to wean the patient from the ventilator. So provide the good nutrition but avoid the overfeeding, control the good glycemic control, and keep the blood sugar in between to 110 to 140 milligram per deciliter. Correct the metabolic factors, especially if the patient has the metabolic alkalosis. Maintain the hemoglobin above the 7 to 8 gram per deciliter. Maintain the adequate cardiac output and tissue perfusion. Treat if patient has any arrhythmias. Treat hypothyroidism and steroid deficiency or any excess. Control the patient's underlying illness. Abolish the ventilator dysynchrony with the appropriate inspiratory flow and the trigger setting. So if the patient has any asynchrony, you can see and you can assess from the scalar and the loops, which I have already discussed in a class of patient ventilator asynchrony, and try to resolve all this problem. If the patient has leak or any volume dropping, you have to address, and you have to change your ventilator setting accordingly. And if the patient has the flow starvation, you have to increase the flow. So always address if the patient has the any patient ventilator asynchrony, and do measurable act at the time, and that will benefit to wean the patient from the ventilator. Change of the mode of the ventilation may help improve patient ventilator interaction. And we already know that if the pressure control mode has the pressure support, or pressure control mode has the better patient ventilator synchrony. So if the patient on the volume control mode, try to change to the pressure support or pressure control mode, and that will definitely benefit the patient because of good synchrony with the patient ventilator. Reverse the bronchospasm as much as possible and reduce the dynamic hyperinflation. Drain out the significant pleural effusion ascites if you are suspecting. Treat intra-abdominal hypertension because it can cause lower lung atelectasis. Treat the pulmonary edema aggressively and discontinue the use of steroid if patient on any aminoglycoside, colistin, statin, because it can cause the critical illness, neuromyopathy. And avoid fluid overload in the renal failure and cardiac failure, and do dialysis if any indication, and make the patients comfortable. So address all these problem and try to resolve all these problem. Do aggressive physiotherapy and mobilization. Reverse the over sedation. If you are giving the any sedation to the patient, you can use the antidote, and you can use the diuresis. Treat anxiety by doing the more communication with the patients. Use the relaxation technique and give the low dose of the benzodiazepine. Diagnose and treat narcotic and benzodiazepine withdrawal. Sometimes it can occur, and treat the delirium and depression as well. And always ensure the nighttime sleep. It may be helpful, and zolpidem you can add. After all these steps, then plan the weaning process in the difficult weaning. How will you plan? Select the mode of ventilation, plan tracheostomy, do aggressive physiotherapy and mobilization of the patient. Always select the proper place, and then you have to choose a weaning protocol. So progressive reduction of the ventilator support, always do the progressive reduction, not suddenly withdraw the ventilator support or decrease the ventilator support from high pressure support to the low pressure support. And you can escalate the time of SBT trial from the 30 minutes to 45 minutes to 60 minutes to maximum you can get 120, and then the duration as well as the frequency you can increase of the, you can give the frequency is, you can increase the frequency as well. Initially you can give the 4 hourly, then if the patient is has no sign of SVT failure, then you can give them more frequently, 2 hourly and 3 hours of the SVT. And decide about the home ventilation or transfer to a long-term care facility when you are suspecting that it is inability to be completely weaned from the ventilator support, including the NIV, and a progression or disease etiology that requires the increasing ventilatory support. So patients should have the stable physiology and proper resource, personal motivation when you are shifting a patient for the home ventilation. And the reference for this presentation, I have taken Chawla et al. Book, that ISO protocol book, and thanks. And if you have any question regarding any of the lecture which I already discussed in the last 11 lecture, and including this, that is 12 lectures. So I am very happy to answer. I will be very happy to answer all these queries and question. And if you don't want to ask now, then you can mail me in my mail ID vikramgupta03@gmail.com, and definitely I will answer all those query in your mail. Thank you so much.